Hello friends, welcome to Target.js and I hope you guys are doing great. So in the next few days I will cover all the polity acts which are very useful for the upcoming prelims, and you can call this video as birth of the acts in India. And here we'll cover the regulating acts, charter acts, Indian councils acts and Government of India act. So before I directly jump into the acts, first we'll look at the historical background. See, the Britishers, they came to India in the year 1600 as traders in the form of East India Company, and they had the exclusive right of trading in India under a charter which was granted by Queen Elizabeth I. And English, that is Britishers, they opened their first factory in Masulipatam in the year 1612. Here you can see it clearly. So the Britishers, they came to India in 1600 as traders in the form of East India Company, and they had this exclusive right of trading in India under a charter which was granted by Queen Elizabeth I. And in the year 1765, the company which was mainly dealing with the trading functions obtained the Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. Here the word Diwani means rights over revenue and civil justice, and this leads to the birth of territorial power. And we all know that in the year 1857, there was a revolt popularly called as the First War of Independence or the Sepoy Mutiny. And in the year 1858, that is after the Sepoy Mutiny, the British Crown assumed direct responsibility for the governance of India. And this rule continued until India was granted independence on August 15, 1947. And after independence, there was a need of a constitution. And as suggested by M.N. Roy, in the year 1934, a Constituent Assembly for this purpose was formed. And on Jan 26, 1950, the Constitution came into effect. And these are some of the facts that are important from prelims perspective. That is, the first one is British came to India in 1600 as traders, and East India Company had purely trading functions. And in 1765, East India Company obtained the Diwani rights, and Shah Alam granted these rights after losing the Battle of Buxar against East India Company, and this started its career as a territorial power. And Revolt of 1857, also known as First War of Independence or Sepoy Mutiny. And in 1858, British Crown assumes direct responsibility for the governance of India, that is, company rule ends and Crown rule starts. And Crown rule continues until India was granted independence on August 15, 1947. So that was the basic historical background, and we all know that various features of our Indian constitution have their roots in the British rule. So since you are preparing for UPSC, it is important to know certain events that lay down the legal framework for the organization and functioning of government and administration in British India. Also, it is important to study these events because they have greatly influenced our constitution and polity. So first, carefully observe this timeline. And now identify two things, that is the company rule and the crown rule. Company rule from 1773 till 1858 and crown rule from 1858 till 1947. Now think, what are these company rule and crown rule? See, when East India Company came in the year 1600 as traders, there were no such rules. And so why this company rule started all of a sudden? See, by 1773, the East India Company was in terrible financial problems, mainly because they faced competition from other countries and they were also facing difficulties to maintain monopoly. At the same time, company was also important to the British Empire because it was a monopoly trading company in India and many influential people were shareholders. Now these shareholders, where some of them were parliamentarians, thought that what shall we do with this East India Company? Because they are not bringing enough profits and they are unable to meet its commitments. Then they decided, let us make an act to take over the management of this East India Company's rule in India, and they called it as Regulating Act. Regulating Act. So that's how the story of Regulating Act came into picture, and they named it as Regulating Act of 1773. So why this act is so important? Because it was the first step taken by the British government to control and regulate the affairs of the East India Company in India. And this was the first time British government recognized the political and administrative functions of the East India Company, and the British government laid down the foundations of the central administration in India. So that was a small introductory video on the birth of the acts, and in the next video we will see the features of the Regulating Act of 1773. And if you like these videos, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you.